Welcome to Dark Seduction Stories, where dangerous love, powerful obsessions, and romance that changes everything. Drop your location in the comments, and let's dive into tonight's tale. The clinic smelled like sterile fear and desperate decisions. Nora Chen sat in the waiting room, her hands trembling slightly as she filled out the consent forms. Around her, others waited with the same hollow expression she'd come to recognize in her bathroom mirror. People who'd run out of options, who'd already sold everything else. The forms asked which memories she wanted to extract, how clear they were, how emotionally significant. The more powerful the memory, the more it was worth. Grief sold well. Joy sold better. Love sold best of all. She checked the boxes methodically, trying not to think too hard about what she was doing. The memory of James proposing at the botanical garden. Their first dance at the wedding. The morning he brought her coffee in bed and told her about the dream where they'd grown old together. 3 memories. Enough to cover 2 months of rent and maybe groceries. Enough to keep her from being evicted from the apartment they'd shared. The last place that still smelled like him. Nora Chen. She looked up to see a technician with kind eyes and a professional smile that didn't reach them. This woman had seen hundreds of people trade away pieces of their souls. One more made no difference. The extraction room was smaller than she'd expected, dominated by a reclining chair that looked like a cross between a dentist's seat and something from a science fiction film. The neural interface crown hung from the ceiling like a mechanical spider. "First time?" the technician asked, already knowing the answer. "Yes." Nora's voice came out smaller than she intended. "It doesn't hurt. Most people say it feels like remembering something really intensely, and then it gets a bit fuzzy, like a dream you can't quite hold on to." The technician helped her into the chair, adjusting the headrest. "You'll still have the memories, technically. You'll know they happened. But the emotional weight, the sensory details, the feeling of being there, that's what we extract. That's what people buy." Nora closed her eyes as the crown lowered onto her head, cold metal against her temples. She thought about the stack of medical bills on her kitchen counter, James's final hospital stay that had devoured their savings and her income, and any hope of staying afloat. She thought about the eviction notice. She thought about Simone's increasingly worried text messages asking if she was eating, if she was sleeping, if she needed help. Pride had kept her from asking. Desperation had brought her here. "Think about the first memory," the technician said softly. "The proposal. Put yourself back there." It came easily, because she'd replayed it 1,000 times since James died. The botanical garden in spring, cherry blossoms drifting down like pink snow. James on one knee, nervous and laughing, the ring box trembling in his hands. The way her heart had felt too big for her chest. The certainty that this was the beginning of everything good. The machine hummed to life. For a moment, she was there completely. She could smell the blossoms, feel the spring breeze. Hear James's voice cracking with emotion as he asked her to marry him. And then it was like watching the memory through foggy glass. Then through water. Then it was just facts without feeling. James proposed. She said yes. There were cherry blossoms. She knew it had been beautiful, but she couldn't remember why. The technician moved through the other 2 memories with efficient compassion. Each extraction felt like losing something irreplaceable, watching it dissolve into clinical distance. When it was over, Nora sat in the chair feeling hollowed out, lighter in a way that made her nauseated. "The memories are encoded on these." The technician held up 3 small crystalline chips, each one glowing faintly with captured experience. "You can sell them yourself at the underground markets, but you'll get maybe 60% of their value, or we can broker them for you. We take 20%, but you'll get a better price." "How much are they worth?" The technician ran the chips through a scanner. "The proposal is high quality, strong emotional resonance, clear sensory details. That's worth about 1,200. The wedding dance, maybe 900. The morning memory is more intimate but shorter, 700. She looked up at Nora. "Total of 2,800 before our cut. You'd walk out with 2,240. Not enough for rent and groceries. Barely enough for rent. Can I sell them myself?" Nora heard herself ask. The technician's expression shifted. Not quite approval, but understanding. The night market operates in the warehouse district, Fridays and Saturdays after midnight. Be careful. Not everyone there is just buying memories to experience. Some are collectors. Some are worse. Nora took the chips, each one a piece of James she could no longer fully feel, and left the clinic with them burning cold in her palm. The night market was exactly as illegal and desperate as she'd imagined. Held in an abandoned textile factory, the space was lit by strings of colored lights and the glow of memory scanners. People moved through the stalls like ghosts, some selling, most buying, looking for experiences they'd never have, emotions they couldn't feel, lives they'd never live. Nora had set up a small space near the back, her 3 memory chips displayed on a black cloth. She'd written simple descriptions on cards: proposal in cherry blossoms, first wedding dance, intimate morning moment. She didn't mention James was dead, didn't mention these were all she had left of feeling his love. The first hour was slow. People would stop, scan the memories with handheld readers to preview their emotional content, then move on. Romance memories were common. Everyone had a love story to sell. How much for all 3? She looked up to find a man standing at her table, and her breath caught for reasons she couldn't immediately name. He was tall, maybe mid-30s, with dark hair that fell slightly into eyes that seemed to see too much. He wore an expensive coat that didn't belong in this place, and he held himself with the kind of stillness that suggested either complete confidence or careful control. 3,000, she said, aiming high because something about him suggested he could afford it. You're new at this. Is it obvious? You're selling memories of your dead husband, and you're sitting here like you're at a garage sale. He picked up the proposal memory chip, held it up to the light. These are worth more than 3,000. The emotional authenticity alone. He stopped, looking at her more carefully. How long ago did he die? 6 months. The words hurt less than they should have. Maybe she'd already sold too much grief. And you're here selling the good memories instead of the pain? Something flickered in his expression. Curiosity, maybe respect. Most people sell the grief first. It's easier, cheaper too. I need the money. Everyone here needs money. He set the chip down carefully. I'm Adrian. I broker high-end memory acquisitions. I have clients who pay premium prices for authentic emotional content. He pulled a card from his coat, set it beside her memories. I'll give you 5,000 for all 3 right now. Or I can introduce you to my network, help you get better prices for whatever else you're planning to sell. Nora stared at the card. Black, minimalist, just a name and a number. Why would you do that? Because authentic grief is rare, and you have it in abundance. His voice was matter of fact, but his eyes held something else, a hunger that should have frightened her. Because these memories are beautifully preserved, which means you loved him deeply and only extracted them recently. That kind of quality is hard to find. He leaned forward slightly. And because I think you have more to sell and I want first access, she should have said no. Should have taken the 5,000 and walked away. But rent was due in 3 days, and she had 18 more memories of James catalogued in her mind, each one a potential lifeline. What kind of prices? She asked. Adrian's smile widened just slightly. For memories like these, I have a client who'd pay 2,000 each, minimum, more for particularly intense moments. He gestured to the proposal chip. This one, I could get you 3,000 easily. The math was simple, brutal. At those prices, she could survive for months, maybe a year, maybe long enough to figure out how to live in this world where James was gone and memories were the only currency she had left. All right, she said quietly. I'll work with you. Adrian extended his hand, and when she shook it, his grip was warm and firm and lasted a moment too long. I'll need your contact information, and I'll need you to sign a contract, non-exclusive, but it gives me right of first refusal on any memories you extract. Right now? Unless you want to keep sitting here watching other vendors undercut you. He glanced around the market. My office is 10 minutes away. We can do the paperwork. I'll transfer the 5,000 for these 3, and we can discuss what else you might be willing to sell. Every instinct told her this was dangerous. She knew nothing about this man, except that he moved through the night market like he owned it and looked at her memories like they were precious artifacts. But desperation made people stupid, and she was so tired of being desperate. "Okay," she said, and started packing up her table. Adrian's office was in a converted loft in the arts district, all exposed brick and modern furniture that probably cost more than Nora made in a year back when she'd had a job. The walls were lined with locked cabinets. Memory storage, she realized. Thousands of experiences preserved in crystalline chips, organized with meticulous care. "Do you keep them all?" she asked, staring at the collection. "The ones worth keeping." He poured 2 glasses of whiskey without asking if she wanted one, handed her one. "Most memories I broker go straight to clients, but some are too valuable to sell immediately. They appreciate over time, especially if the original owner becomes notable or the memory becomes historically significant. That's macabre. That's business." He sat behind his desk, pulled up a contract on a tablet. "I'm not forcing anyone to sell. I'm providing a service connecting people who need money with people who want experiences. Everyone walks away with what they want, except the people selling lose pieces of themselves. They lose pieces they clearly don't want anymore." His eyes met hers, and there was no judgment in them, only a kind of clinical understanding. "You came to that clinic because holding on to those memories was more painful than letting them go. I'm just making sure you get paid properly for that pain." He was right, and she hated that he was right. The contract was straightforward. She would sell memories exclusively through Adrian for the next 6 months. He would take 15%, and she could terminate the agreement with 30 days' notice. She signed it on the tablet, her signature feeling like a contract with something darker than a memory broker. "Now," Adrian said, transferring 5,000 into her account with a few taps, "tell me what else you have." She'd made a list on her phone, each memory catalogued with dates and emotional weight. Their first kiss, the vacation in Greece, the night he told her he was sick, the last conversation before he slipped into unconsciousness. Adrian read through the list, his expression unreadable. "You're planning to sell all of these?" "I need to." "Need," he repeated, and something in his voice made her look up. "Or want to?" The question hit harder than it should have. "Does it matter?" "Not to me." He set the phone down. "But you should be honest with yourself. Some people sell memories because they're desperate for money. Some sell them because they're desperate to forget." He studied her face. "Which one are you?" Nora took a long drink of the whiskey, letting it burn down her throat. "Both." Adrian nodded slowly, something like satisfaction crossing his features. "Good. Honesty makes better memories. The emotions are cleaner." He pulled out his own phone, started making notes. "I have a client who specializes in illness narratives. She's a hospice worker who uses memories to better understand her patients' experiences. The sick conversation and the final goodbye would be valuable to her. 3,000 each. $6,000 to forget the worst moments." It seemed obscene and merciful in equal measure. "The vacation memory," Adrian continued, "I can probably get 4,000 from a travel experience collector. The first kiss, that depends on the quality, but probably 2,500. Total of 15,500 if you sell all 5. He looked at her. "When do you want to do the extraction? How soon can you arrange it?" "Tomorrow afternoon. I have a private technician. More expensive than the clinics, but discreet and more careful with the extraction process. Better preservation means better prices." Tomorrow. She'd been married to James for 3 years, loved him for 5, mourned him for 6 months. And tomorrow, she'd start erasing him from her nervous system, one memory at a time, until all that was left was the clinical knowledge that she'd once loved someone who died. "Tomorrow's fine," she said, and finished her whiskey. Adrian stood, came around the desk. He was close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. "Nora," he said quietly, "I need you to understand something. Once you start this process, it's hard to stop. The money becomes addictive. The lightness becomes addictive. You'll wake up one day and realize you can barely remember what he looked like, and you won't know if that's grief fading naturally, or if you've sold too much. Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to come back." His honesty was startling. "I want you to keep selling to me, but I need you to do it with full awareness of what you're trading away." He held her gaze. Regret makes for bad repeat business. She should have been disturbed by his clinical approach to her pain. Instead, she found it almost comforting. He wasn't pretending to care about her well-being. He cared about the quality of her memories, which at least was honest. "I'll see you tomorrow," she said, and walked out into the night air, feeling the weight of the 5,000 in her account and the 3 missing memories in her head. She took a cab home, even though she couldn't afford it, because the thought of the subway felt like too much. The apartment was dark and cold when she arrived. She turned on all the lights, tried to fill the space with warmth that didn't exist. Her phone buzzed. Simone, texting for the 3rd time that day. "Please tell me you're okay. I'm worried about you." Nora sat on the couch, stared at the message. She couldn't tell Simone what she'd done. Couldn't explain that she'd sold her proposal, her wedding dance, that perfect morning when James had been alive, and everything had felt possible. Simone would be horrified, would try to stop her, would offer money Nora couldn't accept because Simone had her own struggles, her own life to maintain. Instead, she typed, "I'm fine, just tired. Let's get coffee this week." The reply came immediately. "Thursday, don't you dare cancel on me again." Nora smiled despite everything. Simone was relentless, had been since they'd met in college. 2 lost girls who'd found each other and decided they'd be each other's family. She'd been there through James's illness, had held Nora while she sobbed at the funeral, had checked in every day for months, even when Nora stopped answering. She deserved better than lies. But Nora wasn't ready for the truth. That night, she tried to remember the proposal clearly, tried to feel what she'd felt in the garden, but it was gone, replaced by hollow facts. James proposed. She said yes. It happened in spring. The absence should have devastated her. Instead, she felt strangely peaceful, as if some weight had been lifted, and that peace terrified her more than the loss. Adrian's private technician worked out of a penthouse that looked nothing like the sterile clinic where Nora had gone the first time. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and the extraction chair was positioned so she could watch the skyline while pieces of her past dissolved into commodities. The technician was a woman in her 50s named Dr. Reeves, efficient and eerily perceptive. "First time with a private extraction?" she asked, adjusting the neural interface with practiced ease. "Yes. Adrian only sends me clients he thinks are worth the investment." Dr. Reeves smiled slightly. "Your memories must be exceptional quality." "They're just memories." "No memory is just a memory." The doctor settled into her chair, pulled up Nora's file on a holographic display. "We're doing 5 today. 2 illness narratives, 1 travel experience, 1 first romantic encounter, and 1 intimate conversation. That's a lot of emotional processing. Are you sure you want to do them all at once?" Nora thought about her bank account, the eviction notice she'd paid off yesterday, the stack of other bills that wouldn't wait. "I'm sure." Dr. Reeves nodded, though something in her expression suggested she'd seen this before. People selling themselves piece by piece, too desperate or too broken to stop. "Let's start with the travel memory. Ease you in." Greece had been their last vacation together, 3 weeks before James got his diagnosis. They'd rented a small house on Santorini, spent days swimming in impossible blue water and nights drinking wine on their terrace. She remembered his skin bronzed by the sun, the way he'd laughed at her terrible Greek pronunciation, how they'd made love with the windows open and the sound of the sea drifting in. The extraction pulled her into the memory completely. The heat, the salt air, James's hands on her waist as they danced in their tiny kitchen to music from a local radio station. And then it began to fade, the sensory details bleeding away until all that remained was the knowledge that they'd gone to Greece, and it had been pleasant. Pleasant. Such an inadequate word for what it had been. "Good," Dr. Reeves murmured, her eyes on the monitors. "Very clean extraction. Let's move to the first kiss." That memory was older, more worn from being revisited. A college party, too much cheap beer, James walking her home through snow-covered streets. The way he'd stopped under a streetlight, looked at her like she was the only person in the world, and kissed her so softly she'd felt it in her chest. Gone. Then the conversation where James told her he was sick, his voice shaking, her world tilting sideways. The coffee shop suddenly too bright and too loud. The memory extracted cleanly, and with it went the sharp terror of that moment. The feeling that her future had just been amputated. The final goodbye was worse. James in the hospital bed, morphine heavy and drifting, managing to focus on her face long enough to whisper that he loved her, that she should be happy, that she should live. His hand in hers, growing cooler. The monitor's rhythm slowing. When that memory dissolved, Nora found tears on her face, even though she couldn't quite remember why she was crying. All done, Dr. Reeves said gently, lifting the neural interface away. You did very well. These are exceptional quality. Adrian will be pleased. Adrian. The thought of him brought an unexpected flutter of something that wasn't quite anticipation, but wasn't quite dread. He's waiting downstairs to drive you home, Dr. Reeves added, seeing her expression. Post-extraction transport is included in the service. Nora found him in the building's lobby, leaning against a sleek black car and scrolling through his phone. He looked up as she approached, and his expression shifted. Concern, maybe, or satisfaction. It was hard to tell with him. How do you feel? He asked, opening the passenger door for her. Light. It was the only word that fit. Empty in a way that doesn't hurt. That's normal. He slid into the driver's seat, started the engine. The emotional weight is gone, but your brain hasn't adjusted yet. Give it a few days. You'll barely notice the absence. They drove in silence for a while, the city sliding past in shades of grey and gold. Nora watched the buildings, trying to remember what it had felt like to live here with James, to plan a future in this place. The facts were there. They'd talked about buying a house, maybe having kids, but the feeling behind those plans had evaporated. I transferred the $15,500, Adrian said, breaking the silence. Minus my percentage. You should see $13,175 in your account by tomorrow. $13,000 for 5 memories. More money than she'd seen in months. Enough to survive a while longer. Thank you, she said quietly. Don't thank me. You're providing a valuable service. He glanced at her. Although you should think about what else you might want to sell. You have a gift for emotional clarity. Most people's memories are muddled. Too many revisions. Too much time between the event and the extraction. Yours are pristine. Because I've been reliving them obsessively since he died. Exactly. No judgment. Just professional assessment. Grief keeps memories sharp. You're essentially maintaining them at peak value. The clinical nature of it should have repulsed her. Instead, she found herself asking, what else would be valuable? Adrian's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel, the only sign he was pleased by her question. The wedding itself, the moment you found out he was terminal, the funeral. He paused. And eventually, when you're ready, the early memories, meeting him, falling in love, all the small moments that built into something significant. You want me to erase him completely. I want you to do whatever you need to do. His voice was careful now, measured. But yes, if you sold all your memories of James, I could probably get you close to 100,000 total, maybe more, depending on how many there are and their quality. $100,000. Enough to start over. Enough to leave the city. Find a new place where no one knew she'd been married, where no one looked at her with pity. Enough to become someone new. I'll think about it, she said, and meant it. Thursday came faster than Nora expected, and with it came coffee with Simone at their usual place, a tiny cafe near the university where they'd spent countless hours as students. Simone was already there when Nora arrived, her dark curls pulled back, concern etched clearly on her face. You look different, Simone said immediately, standing to hug her. I can't figure out how, but you do. Nora slid into the booth, ordered coffee she didn't really want. Different good or different bad? I don't know yet. Simone studied her with the kind of attention that came from years of friendship. You seem calmer, less haunted, But also, she hesitated, also kind of hollow. Like you're here but not completely here. Too perceptive, as always. I'm managing, Nora said, which wasn't quite a lie. Got some freelance work. Paid the rent. Things are better. What kind of freelance work? Simone's tone was casual, but her eyes were sharp. Consulting, nothing interesting. Nora sipped her coffee, avoided eye contact. How's the gallery? Don't deflect. Simone leaned forward. Nora, I'm worried about you. You stopped answering my calls for weeks. You've lost weight, and now you're sitting here looking like you're medicated, but I know you're not taking anything. What's really going on? The urge to tell her was overwhelming. To explain about the clinic, about Adrian, about the strange relief of having her grief surgically removed. But Simone would try to stop her, and Nora wasn't sure she wanted to be stopped. I'm figuring out how to live without him, she said finally. It's messy, and it's hard, and I'm doing it badly. But I'm doing it. That's all. Simone's expression softened, though the concern didn't leave her eyes. You know I'm here, right? Whatever you need. Money, a place to stay, someone to sit with you at 3 a.m. when the grief gets bad. You don't have to do this alone. I know. Nora reached across the table, squeezed her friend's hand. I promise I'm okay. Better than I've been in a while. It wasn't a complete lie. She was sleeping better without the nightmares of James dying. She could look at their wedding photos without the crushing weight of loss. The apartment felt less like a mausoleum and more like just a place she happened to live. But she also couldn't remember what his laugh sounded like. Couldn't recall the specific way he'd held her when she was sad. The edges of him were already blurring, and she'd only sold 8 memories. They talked for another hour, carefully navigating around the things Nora couldn't say and the things Simone wouldn't push. By the time they parted ways, Nora felt exhausted from the effort of seeming normal, of pretending she wasn't systematically dismantling her own past. Her phone buzzed as she walked home. A text from Adrian. Dinner tonight? I have a client interested in wedding memories if you're ready to extract that one. She should have felt something about selling her wedding. Horror, reluctance, at least a moment of hesitation. Instead, she just felt the same cool calculation she'd been perfecting. The wedding memory would be worth at least 5,000. Maybe more if it was as emotionally rich as the others. Where and when? She texted back. His reply came immediately. My place. 8. I'll cook. Something about that felt dangerously intimate, but Nora pushed the thought aside. Adrian was a business associate. This was a business dinner. The fact that he made her pulse quicken when he looked at her a certain way was irrelevant. Adrian's loft looked different at night, the city lights transforming the windows into panels of gold and white. He answered the door in dark jeans and a sweater, more casual than she'd seen him before, and gestured her inside with a smile that seemed almost genuine. I hope you like Italian, he said, leading her to a dining table set for 2. I'm told I make a decent carbonara. You actually cook? I'm full of surprises. He poured wine, something expensive, she could tell from the label, and handed her a glass. To successful business partnerships. They ate, and it was good. Better than good. Adrian was charming when he wanted to be, asking about her life before James, her photography career that had died along with her husband, her dreams that felt like they belonged to someone else now. Why memories? She asked eventually, emboldened by the wine. Of all the businesses you could have chosen. Adrian leaned back, considered the question. Because memories are the only thing that truly defines us. Everything else, money, possessions, even relationships, those are external. But memories are who we are. They shape our identity, our choices, our entire sense of self. His eyes met hers. To trade in memories is to trade in souls, essentially. What could be more valuable than that? That's either profound or deeply disturbing. Why not both? He smiled. Tell me about the wedding memory. What makes it special? Nora tried to recall it clearly, found it harder than it should have been. Small ceremony, just close friends and family. James cried during his vows. She paused, reaching for details that felt slippery. I remember feeling completely certain, like every choice I'd made in my life had led to that moment, and it was exactly right. That kind of certainty is rare. Adrian's voice was soft. Most wedding memories are contaminated with doubt, nervousness, awareness of the cameras. Pure joy is uncommon. My client will pay well for it. How much? 6,000, maybe 7 if the extraction is clean. $7,000 for the day she married James. It should have felt obscene. It should have made her stand up and walk out. When can we schedule it? She asked instead. Something flickered in Adrian's expression. Satisfaction, yes, but also something else. Something that looked almost like hunger. Tomorrow, if you want, Dr. Reeves has an opening. They finished dinner talking about logistics, about other memories she might eventually sell, about his client base and their peculiar appetites for second-hand experiences. It should have felt clinical, transactional. Instead, it felt strangely intimate, like they were conspirators in something secret and forbidden. When she stood to leave, Adrian walked her to the door, standing close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. "Nora," he said quietly, "I want you to know, what we're doing, this arrangement, it's more than business to me." Her breath caught. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I find you fascinating." His hand came up, brushed a strand of hair from her face, with a gentleness that contradicted his usual clinical detachment. Most people who sell their memories are running from something. You're running towards something. I want to know what it is. "Maybe I'm just running," she whispered. "Maybe." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "But I don't think so." He didn't kiss her, though the moment hung between them with enough tension that she almost wished he would. Instead, he stepped back, professional distance restored like a wall going up. "I'll see you tomorrow," he said, and she left before she could do something stupid, like ask him to let her stay. The wedding extraction was harder than the others, maybe because it had been such a perfect day, unmarred by the knowledge of what was coming. Maybe because some part of her knew that selling this memory meant crossing a line she couldn't uncross. Dr. Reeves was patient, guiding her through the neural interface calibration with practiced ease. "Ready?" she asked, and Nora nodded even though she wasn't. The memory bloomed vivid and overwhelming. The church filled with flowers. Simone adjusting her veil with tears in her eyes, walking down the aisle toward James, who looked at her like she was something holy, his hands shaking as he slid the ring onto her finger. The kiss that felt like a promise they'd actually keep, and then it was draining away. The colors fading to washed-out watercolor, the emotions flattening to pleasant acknowledgement. She'd gotten married. It had been nice. James had been there. When the extraction finished, Nora sat very still, waiting to feel devastated. But there was only that strange lightness again, that sense of being unburdened. "Are you all right?" Dr. Reeves asked, concern creasing her features. "I think so." Nora touched her face, expecting tears, finding none. "Is that normal? To feel relieved?" "More common than you'd think." The doctor began disconnecting the interface. "Grief is exhausting. Sometimes letting it go feels like finally being able to breathe." Nora left the penthouse and found Adrian waiting in the lobby again, this time with coffee and a concerned expression that seemed almost genuine. "How was it?" he asked, falling into step beside her. "Easy." The word felt wrong, but it was true. "Too easy. That worries you, shouldn't it?" Adrian considered this as they walked. No particular destination in mind. Most people think grief is love persisting after death, that letting go of grief means letting go of love. He glanced at her. But maybe grief is just pain, and letting go of pain doesn't diminish what you felt. It just means you're finally ready to stop hurting. "You almost sound like you believe that." "I do believe it." His voice was quiet, and for once, there was no professional distance in it. "I've seen hundreds of people sell their memories, Nora. The ones who regret it are the ones who were pressured or desperate. The ones who don't regret it are the ones who chose it freely, who wanted to let go." He stopped walking, turned to face her. "Which one are you?" She looked at him. This man, who traded in souls, who looked at her with something between fascination and hunger, who made her feel seen in a way that was both thrilling and terrifying. Both, she admitted. I need the money, but I also want this. I want to stop feeling like I'm drowning in a past I can't have back. Adrian nodded slowly, something like understanding in his eyes. Then keep going. Sell what you need to sell. And when you're ready to stop, stop. What if I don't want to stop? The question came out before she could think better of it. His expression shifted. Surprise, maybe, or satisfaction. Then don't. They stood there on the sidewalk, the city moving around them, and Nora felt something shift inside her. A decision crystallizing, inevitable and terrifying. I want to sell all of them, she said. Every memory of James. Everything. Adrian's eyes darkened with something she couldn't name. Are you sure? No. She laughed, and it sounded slightly unhinged even to her own ears. But I'm going to do it anyway. He reached out, took her hand. His fingers were warm, solid, real in a way that James no longer was. Then let's do this right. Slowly. Give yourself time to adjust between extractions. And if at any point you want to stop, I won't. If you want to stop, he continued firmly, you can. The contract allows it. She nodded, though they both knew she wouldn't stop. Not now. Not when she'd finally found a way to become someone new. Over the next 3 weeks, Nora methodically dismantled her relationship with James. Every few days, she'd sit in Dr. Reeves's extraction chair and surrender another piece. The night they moved in together, their first fight and the makeup sex that followed, the quiet Sunday mornings, reading the paper in bed. With each extraction, James became less real. His face in her mind grew vaguer, like a photograph left too long in sunlight. She could still recite facts about their relationship. They'd met at 23, married at 26, he'd died at 29, but the emotional truth of those facts had evaporated. And with each extraction, Adrian became more present. He started calling her between appointments, just to check in. Started taking her to dinner after extractions, ensuring she wasn't alone in those strange, hollow hours that followed. Started looking at her with an intensity that had nothing to do with the quality of her memories, and everything to do with her. Simone noticed the change, of course. You're seeing someone, she said during their next coffee date. Her tone caught between happiness and concern. Aren't you? No. Technically true. She and Adrian hadn't crossed that line yet, though the tension between them was becoming unbearable. But you want to be. Simone studied her face. Nora, that's okay. You're allowed to move on. James would want you to be happy. The thing was, Nora could barely remember what James would have wanted. She'd sold that memory 2 weeks ago. The conversation where he'd told her to live, to love again, to not spend her life mourning him. Now it was just abstract knowledge, words without weight. I know, she said softly. I'm trying. Who is he? Simone leaned forward, eager for details. How did you meet? Through work. Not quite a lie. It's new, complicated. I don't want to jinx it by talking about it too much. Simone accepted this with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Just be careful, okay? You're still grieving, even if you seem better. Don't rush into something just because it feels good to not be alone. I won't, Nora promised, and wondered if that was a lie too. That night, Adrian took her to an art gallery opening. One of his clients was a collector, he explained. And networking was important, but the way he kept his hand on the small of her back, the way he introduced her as someone important rather than just a supplier, suggested this was something more than business. They stood in front of a painting, abstract, all bleeding colors and violent brushstrokes, and Adrian leaned close to murmur in her ear. What do you see? Chaos. She studied the canvas. Or maybe freedom. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. You're changing, he said softly. Did you know that? The way you talk, the way you carry yourself. You're becoming someone else. Is that good or bad? It's inevitable. His hand slid from her back to her waist, an intimate gesture that should have felt presumptuous, but instead felt right. We're shaped by our memories. Remove the memories and the shape changes. You're not the woman who loved James anymore. You're someone new. Who am I then? I don't know yet. He turned to look at her, his eyes dark and intent. But I'd like to find out. Later, in the car driving back to her apartment, Nora found herself asking the question that had been nagging at her for weeks. Why are you doing this? Doing what? This. She gestured between them. The dinners, the attention, treating me like I'm more than just another client. You could broker my memories without any of this. Adrian was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working like he was choosing his words carefully. Do you want the professional answer or the honest one? Honest, because you're extraordinary. His voice was low, almost rough. Because watching you shed your past like a second skin is the most fascinating thing I've ever witnessed. Because when I look at you, I don't see someone broken. I see someone becoming. Her heart hammered against her ribs. That's not professional at all. No. He pulled up in front of her building, turned off the engine. It's not. They sat in the darkness of the car, the street empty around them, and Nora felt the weight of inevitability settling over her. She'd been moving toward this moment since the first night at the market, maybe even before that. Come upstairs, she said. Nora, I'm not asking as a client. She met his eyes. I'm asking as someone who doesn't want to be alone tonight. Something in his expression cracked, the professional mask finally falling away completely. Are you sure? She was sure of nothing except that James was fading to grey in her mind, and Adrian was vivid and present and real. Yes, her apartment still held traces of her old life. Photos she hadn't taken down, James's jacket still hanging by the door, books they'd bought together collecting dust on the shelves, but they felt like artifacts from someone else's life now. Museum pieces she couldn't quite connect to. Adrian stood in the middle of the living room, looking around with an expression she couldn't read. This is where you lived with him. Yes. She poured them both wine, her hands steadier than they should have been. Does that bother you? Should it? He took the glass, his fingers brushing hers. You've sold most of your memories of this place. It's just a space now. Doesn't mean what it used to. He was right, and that should have devastated her. Instead, she felt only relief. I have 6 more memories to sell, she said, setting her wine down. The really early ones. Meeting him, our first date, falling in love. After those are gone. She stopped, unsure how to finish the sentence. After those are gone, he'll just be a name in your past. Adrian stepped closer. Someone you knew once. Someone who died, but not someone who shaped you anymore. Is that terrible? She whispered. It's survival. His hand came up, cupped her face with surprising gentleness. And there's nothing terrible about wanting to survive. When he kissed her, it felt like permission. To let go. To move forward. To become whoever she was becoming without the weight of her past dragging her down. His mouth was insistent, hungry, and she kissed him back with a desperation that surprised her. They made it to the bedroom, the same bed she'd shared with James, but it didn't feel like a betrayal. It felt like reclaiming space, like writing over old text with something new and urgent and alive. Afterward, they lay tangled in sheets, Adrian's fingers tracing patterns on her skin. Tell me something, he said quietly. Something real. What do you want to know? What you're afraid of? Nora stared at the ceiling, considering. I'm afraid that when all the memories are gone, there won't be anything left. That I'll just be hollow. You won't be. His voice was certain. You'll be free. How can you be so sure? He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because I've seen it before. People who let go of everything and became something better. Something unencumbered. Have you ever sold your memories? No. The word was flat, final. I keep all of mine. The good and the bad, I need them. Why? Because someone has to remember. He turned to look at her. Something strange in his expression. All these people selling their pasts. Someone needs to preserve them. Bear witness to what they're letting go. It should have sounded noble. Instead, it sounded almost possessive. Like he was collecting more than just memories for profit. But Nora was too exhausted, too satisfied, too relieved to examine the thought too closely. She fell asleep in his arms, dreamless for the first time in months. The next morning, she woke to find Adrian already dressed, standing by the window with his phone to his ear. He was speaking quietly, but she caught fragments. more valuable than I expected, and almost complete. And yes, she's agreed to all of them. Business call, she told herself. Just business. He turned, saw her awake, and immediately ended the call. Good morning. Morning. She sat up, pulled the sheet around herself. Was that about my memories? Always working, he said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I have a client very interested in the early relationship memories. The falling in love sequence. They're willing to pay premium rates. How premium? $5,000 each for the first date and meeting memories. $8,000 for the falling in love moment if you can isolate it. That realization where you knew it was love. Nora did the math quickly. With the other remaining memories, she'd clear close to $40,000 more. Add that to what she'd already made, and she'd have enough to leave the city, start completely fresh somewhere no one knew her story. Schedule them, she said. Adrian's expression flickered. Triumph, maybe, or something darker. All at once? Why drag it out? She stood, wrapped herself in a robe. Let's finish this. Nora. He stopped, seemed to struggle with something. Once these are gone, you won't remember loving him at all. You'll know the facts, but the feeling will be completely absent. You'll be erasing the foundation of your adult life. I know. And she did know, with a clarity that was almost frightening. That's what I want. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. I'll arrange it for tomorrow. Dr. Reeves can do multiple extractions in one session if they're scheduled properly. After he left, Nora stood in her apartment and tried to remember what James's voice had sounded like. She couldn't. Tried to recall the feeling of his arms around her. Nothing but abstract knowledge that he'd held her. Once, frequently. She picked up her phone, found Simone's number, hesitated. What would she even say? That she was selling her soul piece by piece and sleeping with the broker. That she could barely remember her dead husband and felt relieved about it. Instead, she texted, "Can we meet for coffee? Soon." The reply came within minutes. "Today. Noon. Same place. Don't you dare cancel." Simone was already there when Nora arrived, and the concern on her face had deepened into something closer to alarm. "Okay, what's going on?" she said immediately. "And don't tell me nothing." "You look." She stopped, searching for words. "You look like you, but not you, like someone wearing your face." Too accurate, as always. "I'm figuring things out," Nora said carefully. "Making changes." "What kind of changes?" Simone leaned forward, her dark eyes intense. "Nora, I've known you for 10 years. Something is really wrong, and you won't tell me what it is, and that terrifies me." The urge to confess was overwhelming. To tell her everything, the clinic, Adrian, the systematic dismantling of her past. To ask if this was madness, or survival, or both. But if she told Simone, Simone would try to stop her, would remind her of who she used to be, would anchor her to a past she was desperate to escape. "I met someone," Nora said instead. "We're seeing each other. It's helping." "The work guy?" Simone's expression shifted between relief and skepticism. "That's good, I think. But Nora, you're moving so fast. James has only been gone 6 months. The number felt meaningless. "I know. Do you?" Simone reached across the table, grabbed her hand. "Because you seem like you've already forgotten him. Like he didn't even exist." The words hit like a slap, mainly because they were true. "Maybe I need to forget," Nora said quietly. "Maybe that's the only way I can survive this." Simone's grip tightened on her hand. "That's not true. You're stronger than you think. You don't have to erase him to move forward." "What if I want to?" The question hung between them, raw and honest. Simone pulled back, something like hurt crossing her face. "Then I don't know who you are anymore." Neither do I, Nora thought, but didn't say it aloud. They parted ways with promises to talk soon, promises they both knew were fragile. As Nora walked home, she felt the last threads connecting her to her old life beginning to fray. Tomorrow, she would sell the final memories. Tomorrow, James would become nothing but a name and a few scattered facts. Tomorrow, she would be free. Her phone buzzed. Adrian, confirming the appointment. "Dr. Reeves at 2 p.m. I'll be there with you." She texted back a simple, "Thank you," and felt a flutter of something in her chest that might have been anticipation or might have been dread. That night, alone in her apartment, Nora tried one last time to summon the memories she was about to sell. Meeting James at that party, both of them drunk and laughing. Their first date at a terrible Italian restaurant where the wine was cheap and the conversation endless. The moment she'd realized she loved him, watching him read in the early morning light, coffee in hand, completely unaware of her gaze. The memories came, but they felt distant, like scenes from a movie she'd watched years ago. The emotional weight was already gone, sold off piece by piece until only the skeleton remained. Tomorrow, even that would disappear. She should have felt terrified, should have felt something other than this calm certainty that she was doing exactly what needed to be done. But all she felt was ready. The morning of the final extraction arrived with unseasonable cold, the kind that seeped into bones and made the city feel hostile. Nora stood in front of her bathroom mirror, studying her reflection like it belonged to a stranger. Same face, same features, but something fundamental had shifted behind her eyes. She looked lighter, unburdened, almost empty. Adrian arrived at noon to drive her to Dr. Reeves's penthouse, bringing coffee and attention she couldn't quite name. He seemed different today, distracted, almost nervous, checking his phone repeatedly during the drive. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "Fine." His smile was quick, automatic. This is a significant moment. The completion of a collection, essentially. All your memories of James in one place. Your client must be very interested." "Yes." Something flickered across his face. "Very interested indeed." Dr. Reeves greeted them with her usual professional warmth, but Nora noticed the way she looked at Adrian, a glance that held questions, maybe concern. "This is an extensive session," the doctor said, guiding Nora to the extraction chair. 6 memories, all emotionally significant. "We'll need to take breaks between extractions to let your neural pathways stabilize." "How long will it take?" 3 to 4 hours. Dr. Reeves began attaching the neural interface, her movements precise and practiced. "Adrian will stay with you throughout. Some clients find it comforting to have someone present for the deeper extractions." Adrian settled into a chair beside her, close enough that she could reach for his hand if she needed to. But his attention seemed elsewhere, focused on the monitors displaying her neural activity with an intensity that bordered on obsession. "Ready?" Dr. Reeves asked. Nora closed her eyes. Ready. The first memory, meeting James at that party, came easily. She'd worn a red dress, felt brave and reckless and young. He'd been leaning against a wall, watching her with quiet amusement. And when he'd introduced himself, his voice had been warm like bourbon. They'd talked until the party emptied around them, until the host had kicked them out, until the sun had started to rise over the city. The extraction pulled the memory apart, dissolved the feeling of possibility and connection, left only facts, party, meeting, conversation, nothing remarkable. "Excellent quality," Adrian murmured, his eyes fixed on the monitors. "The emotional resonance is extraordinary." The second memory, their first date, followed. Dinner at that terrible restaurant. James making her laugh so hard she'd spit wine across the table. The way he'd held her hand. Walking home, casual but intentional. Like he was claiming something precious. The goodnight kiss that had lasted until neither of them could breathe. Gone. Third memory. The early days of their relationship. That honeymoon period where everything felt electric. Stolen hours in his apartment. Long phone calls that stretched into dawn. The certainty that this was different, that this mattered. Extracted. Between each extraction, Dr. Reeves would pause, check Nora's vitals, ensure her neural pathways were handling the systematic dismantling. And between each extraction, Adrian would lean closer, his hand finding hers, his voice soft. "You're doing beautifully." The fourth memory was harder. The moment she'd realized she loved him. Watching him sleep in the morning light, his face peaceful and vulnerable, and feeling her heart crack open with the terrifying certainty of love. The recognition that she would do anything for this person, that he had become essential to her continued existence. The extraction felt like losing gravity. For a moment, she gasped, her hand gripping Adrian so hard she heard him hiss in pain. And then it was over, and the love dissolved into clinical observation. She had loved him, apparently, at some point. That one was intense, Dr. Reeves said, her voice careful. Do you need to stop? We can schedule the remaining 2 for another day. No. Nora's voice was steady. Keep going. I want this done. Adrian's thumb traced circles on her palm, soothing and possessive. You're sure? I'm sure. The 5th memory, the conversation where James had told her he wanted to marry her long before the actual proposal. They'd been in bed, tangled together, and he'd said it so casually it had taken her a moment to register. I'm going to marry you someday. Not a question, but a promise. And she'd believed him completely. The extraction was clean, efficient. The promise evaporated like morning mist. 1 memory left. The last one is the decision to love him, Dr. Reeves said quietly. That conscious choice you made early on to let yourself fall. It's often the deepest memory. The foundation, everything else built on. She looked at Nora seriously. Once this is gone, James will be a stranger to you. Someone you knew facts about but never felt anything for. Are you absolutely certain? Nora looked at Adrian, found him staring at her with an expression that was almost reverent. Do it, she said. The final memory surfaced. That moment in the early weeks when she'd recognized that she could love this man, that it would be easy and terrifying and worth it. The conscious decision to open herself to the possibility of pain, because the alternative was missing something profound. The yes she'd said to her own heart. The extraction pulled it away, and with it went the last thread connecting her to James. When Dr. Reeves lifted the neural interface, Nora felt nothing. No grief, no relief, no sense of loss. Just a strange flatness, like being underwater with all sound muffled. How do you feel? The doctor asked. Empty. Nora sat up slowly, testing her equilibrium. But not in a bad way. Just neutral. That's normal. Dr. Reeves made notes on her tablet. Your brain is recalibrating. You've just removed a significant portion of your identity architecture. Give it a few days to settle. Adrian stood, offered his hand to help her up. His fingers were warm, solid, real. Let's get you home. But as they left, Nora caught the look Dr. Reeves gave Adrian. Something between concern and accusation. Something that made her stomach turn, even though she couldn't identify why. In the car, Adrian was quiet, his hands tight on the steering wheel. Finally, he said, I need to show you something. What? Something I should have shown you before. He didn't look at her. Something you deserve to know now that it's done. Warning bells rang distantly in Nora's mind. But she was too hollowed out to care. Okay. He drove them to his loft, led her inside with a gentleness that felt like apology. The apartment was exactly as she remembered. Expensive, minimal, lined with those locked cabinets full of other people's memories. Adrian went to one cabinet in particular, entered a code, pulled out a drawer. Inside were dozens of crystalline chips, each one labeled with dates and brief descriptions. All of them had her name. I haven't sold any of them, he said quietly. I told you I was brokering them to clients, but I kept every single one. Nora stared at the collection, her entire relationship with James, preserved and organized and possessed by this man. Why? Because they're yours. He turned to face her, and his expression was raw in a way she'd never seen. Because watching you let them go was the most extraordinary thing I've ever witnessed, but I couldn't let them disappear completely. Someone needed to keep them safe. You lied to me. The words came out flat, emotionless. Yes. No denial, no excuse. I paid you what I promised. You got your money, but I couldn't let anyone else have these. They're too precious. Nora reached out, picked up one of the chips. Her wedding day, according to the label. She held the crystalline structure up to the light, watched it refract into rainbow patterns. Inside this tiny object was the most important day of her life, and she felt nothing looking at it. I could buy them back, she said slowly. Couldn't I? Have them reintegrated? Theoretically. Adrian watched her carefully. But the process isn't perfect. You'd get the memories back, but they'd feel foreign, like they happened to someone else. And the emotional weight would be diminished. You can never fully restore what's been extracted. So these are just artifacts now. She set the chip down carefully. Pieces of a person who doesn't exist anymore. Yes, she should have been angry, should have felt betrayed, manipulated, used. But all she felt was a distant curiosity. Why are you showing me this now? Adrian stepped closer, close enough that she could feel his breath. Because I want you to understand what we've done together. You trusted me to help you become someone new. And I did. But I also preserved who you were. Every moment of love, every piece of grief, every memory that made you who you were with him. His hand came up, cupped her face. I own your past now, Nora, and I'm the only person alive who knows what it felt like to be you when you loved him. The words should have terrified her. Instead, they felt like a dark kind of intimacy. You've been experiencing them, she realized. That's what you do with the memories you keep. You live them. Yes, no shame in his voice. I've walked through every moment of your relationship. I've felt what you felt when he proposed, when you married him, when he died. I know your love for him more intimately than you do now. That's sick. Maybe. He pulled her closer. But it's also the most profound connection two people can have. I don't just know about your past. I've lived it. I know you in a way no one else ever will. Nora's mind spun, trying to process the magnitude of what he was saying. He'd been inside her memories, experiencing her life, feeling her emotions. He knew her marriage better than she did now, knew James through her eyes. Why? She whispered. Why would you do this? Because I'm obsessed with you. Simple, honest, terrifying. From the moment I saw you in the night market, selling pieces of yourself, I knew I needed to know everything about you. And now I do. Every moment of joy, every second of pain. I've lived your love story, Nora. I've been you. You're insane, perhaps. He kissed her forehead gently. But you're free now. Free of him. Free of the grief. Free to be whoever you want to be. And I'm the only one who remembers who you were before. The enormity of it settled over her like a shroud. She'd sold her past to escape it, but Adrian had collected every piece, assembled it like a puzzle, made it his own. He'd been living her life while she'd been dismantling it. I should leave, she said, but didn't move. You could. His arms wrapped around her, secure and inescapable. You could walk out and never see me again. But then you'd be completely untethered. No past, no one who truly knows you. At least with me, someone remembers. He was right, and that was the most disturbing part. Without these memories, she was barely a person. Just facts and present moments with no emotional continuity. Adrian had become her living history, the keeper of everything she'd been. What happens now? She asked. Now you decide. He pulled back just enough to look at her. You can try to build a new life separate from all of this. Or you can stay with me and I'll tell you stories about who you used to be. I'll keep your past safe while you create your future. It was a terrible offer, a binding contract disguised as choice. But Nora found herself considering it anyway, because the alternative was drifting through life with no anchor, no foundation, nothing solid to build on. I need time, she said finally. Take all the time you need. Adrian released her, stepped back. But know this, I will never sell these memories. They're mine now, as much as they were ever yours. And as long as I'm alive, someone will remember what it meant when Nora Chen loved James. She left his loft in a daze, walking through streets that felt unfamiliar despite living in this city for years. Everything looked different without the weight of memory to contextualize it. Her phone buzzed. Simone, checking in again. Please call me, I'm really worried. Nora stared at the message, tried to remember why Simone mattered to her. They'd been friends for years, apparently. Simone had been at her wedding, had helped her through James's death, had tried to keep her anchored. But those were just facts now. The feeling behind them had evaporated along with everything else. She almost didn't call back, but some instinct for self-preservation made her dial, and Simone answered on the first ring. Nora, where are you? Can we meet? I don't think that's a good idea. Silence on the other end, then, what happened to you? Please, just talk to me. Tell me what's going on. And suddenly, Nora wanted to tell her everything. About the memories, about Adrian, about the terrible things she'd done to herself in the name of survival. Can you meet me at my apartment? Nora asked. Now? I'm already on my way. Simone arrived 20 minutes later, her face drawn with concern. She took one look at Nora and her expression crumbled. What did you do? And Nora told her. Simone listened in silence as Nora explained everything. The clinic, the extractions, Adrian's collection of her memories, the systematic erasure of James from her emotional landscape. With each revelation, Simone's face grew paler, her hands gripping the edge of Nora's kitchen table until her knuckles went white. When Nora finished, the silence stretched between them like a wound. You sold your memories of James, Simone said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. All of them. Yes. And this man, Adrian, he's been experiencing them. Living your life with James through your own memories. Yes. Simone stood abruptly, paced to the window. Nora, do you understand? What you've done? You've given a stranger complete access to your most intimate moments. He knows things about you that even I don't know. He's been inside your head. I know. Do you? Simone whirled around, and there were tears in her eyes. Because from where I'm standing, you've let someone violate you in the most profound way possible, and you're acting like it's just business. The word violation hung in the air, and Nora felt a distant flicker of something that might have been distress if she could still access those emotions properly. He paid me fairly. Simone pressed her hands to her face. This isn't about money. This is about someone taking advantage of your grief to possess you. He owns your past. Don't you see how fucked up that is? I chose this. Did you? Simone's voice cracked. Or did he manipulate a grieving widow into selling pieces of herself until there was nothing left? The question lodged in Nora's chest. Had she chosen this? Or had Adrian guided her toward it, step by careful step, until erasure felt like liberation? Her phone rang. Adrian, she answered on speaker. I know you told your friend, he said, his voice calm. I know you're confused right now. But Nora, you need to understand something. What? I'm coming over. There's something I need to show you both. Something about the memories. About James. Don't you dare, Simone started, but Nora held up her hand. What about James? Just let me come over, please. You deserve to know the truth. 20 minutes later, Adrian stood in Nora's living room, a tablet in his hands, and an expression she'd never seen before. Something between triumph and regret. Before I show you this, he said quietly, I want you to know, I never intended to hurt you. Everything I did because I loved you. You don't even know me, Nora said. I know you better than anyone alive. He turned the tablet toward her, because I know the truth about James. The screen showed a memory, her memory, clearly, from the first-person perspective of the extraction. But it wasn't one she'd sold to Adrian. It was from before she'd met James, from her early 20s. How do you have this? Nora demanded. Because James sold it to me 5 years ago, Adrian said softly. The room tilted. That's impossible, Simone said. James never. He wouldn't. He did. Adrian swiped through more files. James Chen. He came to me 6 years ago, before he even met you, Nora. He'd been selling memories for months, funding his art career, paying off debt. He was one of my most prolific clients. You're lying. But Nora's voice was weak. I'm not. Adrian pulled up transaction records, extraction dates, signed contracts, all with James's signature. He sold dozens of memories, childhood, relationships, significant experiences. He was systematically erasing his past, just like you did. And then he met you. Nora sank into a chair, her mind reeling. The man you married, Adrian continued, his voice gentle now, wasn't quite who you thought he was. He'd already erased significant portions of himself. His first love, his family history, trauma from his childhood. He built himself into someone new, and then he built a life with you using that fabricated identity. Why are you telling me this? Nora whispered. Because I want you to understand. What you did wasn't wrong. You were following in his footsteps. James understood the freedom of letting go. He chose to become someone new, and so did you. Adrian knelt in front of her. And I've been collecting both of you, preserving who you both were before you erased yourselves. That's sick, Simone breathed. That's love. Adrian's eyes never left Nora's face. I fell in love with James first, actually. Through his memories. I experienced his childhood, his pain, his journey to becoming the man you met. And when he died, I mourned him. He paused. And then you walked into the night market, and I recognized you immediately from his memories of you. I knew exactly who you were, what you meant to him, and I knew I could help you the same way I'd helped him. The horror of it crashed over Nora in waves. You orchestrated this. From the beginning. I facilitated it, Adrian corrected gently. You still made every choice. But yes, I saw you coming. I knew you'd eventually want to sell everything, just like he did. Grief makes people predictable that way. You manipulated her, Simone snarled. I gave her what she needed. Adrian stood, looked down at Nora with something like affection. And now I have both of you. Complete collections of who you were before you chose to forget. James and Nora Chen, preserved forever in crystalline memory. I'm the only person who knows your real story. The only one who remembers the truth of who you both were. Get out, Nora said, her voice shaking. I'm leaving. Adrian moved toward the door. But understand this. You can't escape me, Nora. I am your history now. James's history. Every significant moment of your lives exists inside me. I've lived your entire relationship from both perspectives. I've been you loving him, and I've been him loving you. I know your marriage more intimately than either of you ever did. He paused at the door. And whenever you want to remember, whenever you need to know who you really were, I'll be waiting. After he left, Nora and Simone sat in stunned silence. We have to do something, Simone said finally. We have to stop him. How? Nora's voice was hollow. Everything he did was legal. James consented, I consented. He's just a collector of legal transactions. But he targeted you. He planned this, and I walked right into it. Nora looked at her hands. James sold his memories too. That means everything I loved about him. His kindness, his openness, the way he seemed to understand me. That was already a reconstruction. He'd erased his real self before we even met. I fell in love with someone who was already partially hollow. That doesn't make what you felt less real, doesn't it? Nora laughed bitterly. Adrian's right. He knows our story better than we do. He's experienced it from every angle. He's lived inside both of our heads. In a way, he's the only one who truly knows what our marriage meant. The realization settled over her like a shroud. She'd thought she was escaping grief by selling her memories, but she'd actually been completing a pattern James had started. They'd both sold themselves to Adrian, piece by piece, and he'd been collecting them like butterflies pinned to cork. What are you going to do? Simone asked. Nora stood, walked to the window. The city spread out below, full of people carrying their pasts with them, their memories intact and burdensome and theirs. She'd thought letting go would make her free. Instead, she'd just transferred ownership of her identity to someone else. I'm going to live, she said finally. I'm going to wake up every day and be whoever I am now. Not who I was with James, not who Adrian thinks I should be. Just me, whatever that means. And Adrian? Let him keep his collection. Nora turned from the window. Let him live inside those memories forever, experiencing a past that doesn't exist anymore, while I'm out here building something new. But even as she said it, she knew the truth. Adrian would always be there, a shadow keeper of everything she'd been. He'd preserved James's memories, then hers, building a complete archive of a relationship that neither party could fully remember anymore. He'd won, in a way. Not just her memories, but her entire history. He knew things about her relationship that she could never know again. He'd lived inside her love story from both sides, experienced it more completely than she ever had. And somewhere in the city, Adrian sat in his loft, surrounded by stolen experiences, playing her memories on repeat, living her life better than she could herself. 6 months later, Nora sat in a cafe she'd never been to before, drinking coffee and working on her laptop. She'd found freelance work again, photography, though she couldn't remember learning it. Apparently her hands still knew how to hold a camera, even if her mind couldn't recall why she loved it. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she opened it. A photo loaded. James and her at their wedding. A shot she'd never seen before. Below it, a caption. He was thinking about how lucky he was. You were thinking about forever. I was there for both. I remember. Always, Adrian. Nora stared at the photo, at the strangers in wedding clothes, at the evidence of love she could no longer access, and felt nothing. She deleted the message, blocked the number, and went back to her work. But she knew he'd send another, and another, because Adrian had found the perfect addiction. He'd learned to love through other people's memories, to experience emotions he couldn't generate himself, and she'd given him the richest collection he'd ever owned. Somewhere in the city, Adrian was living her wedding night for the 3rd time that week, feeling what she'd felt, seeing through her eyes, experiencing love secondhand but completely. He'd become a parasite of memory, feeding on the lives of people desperate enough to sell, and she'd been his perfect victim, a grieving widow with high-quality memories and nowhere else to turn. James had been the same, she realized. They'd both sold themselves to escape pain, never understanding that Adrian was building something with their discarded pasts, a collection, an archive, a museum of stolen identity, and now he had them both, preserved and perfect, while the real Nora Chen sat in a coffee shop feeling nothing about a marriage she could no longer remember. That night, she dreamed of James. Or maybe it wasn't a dream. Maybe it was just her brain trying to fill in the gaps where memories used to be. He stood across from her, translucent and sad. "Did you ever really love me?" she asked him. "Or were you already too erased to feel it fully? Does it matter?" His voice echoed strangely. Adrian knows the answer. He's the only one who does. She woke with tears on her face, crying for a man she couldn't remember loving, in a relationship that had been built on mutual erasure from the start. And somewhere across the city, Adrian smiled in his sleep, living inside her memories. The only person who would ever truly know what it meant when Nora Chen loved James Chen, and what it meant when James Chen loved her back.